So now it is my great pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine, a lifelong advocate for equal protection under the law, no matter your sexual orientation, your age, and certainly your sex or gender, in this particular context, protecting children from genital cutting. He's the director of GALDEF, the Genital Autonomy Legal Defense and Education Fund, supporting litigators and advancing the civil rights of all children. Let's give a big round of applause to Tim Hammond.
Thank you, Eric. GALDEF, Genital Autonomy Legal Defense and Education Fund, is proud to be a supporter of Intact Global's efforts here in Oregon to ensure equality for all children. Oregon's FGM law is one of many statutes dealing with offenses against persons such as rape, sexual abuse and harassment, spousal and child abuse, theft, and even murder, all of which are gender neutral. The FGM statute, however, is the only one that is sex specific. Since FGM was already prosecutable under existing assault laws, very few females in Oregon were at risk of FGM. The law was completely unnecessary, but served primarily as a statement of values. While we all value the need to protect girls from genital cutting, the law created two new discriminatory rights. The first was an explicitly positive right to genital integrity, but applicable only to females. The second was a tacitly negative right, the right to be left alone, but again, applicable only to females and not to male or intersex children. As someone who as a youth fought for the Equal Rights Amendment, I find the current FGM law to be an affront to gender equality. Now, this isn't about a competition over who suffers more, women or men, but let's be honest, genital mutilation is not happening to adult women and men. It's happening to the most vulnerable among us, babies and children, who should all be protected equally.
Yeah.
On this, many women, feminists, and FGM survivors agree. In 1979, anti-FGM pioneer Fran Hoskin wrote the following about bodily integrity, saying, quote, "Human rights are indivisible. They apply to every society and culture and every continent. We cannot differentiate between black and white, rich and poor, or between male and female if the concept of human rights is to mean anything at all." In 1993, author-filmmaker Alice Walker, talking on National Public Radio about her film on FGM, Warrior Marks, said this of male circumcision, quote, "I think it is a mutilation. We have to think about what's being done from the point of view of the person to whom it's happening, namely the children." In 1997, feminist pioneer Gloria Steinem spoke about the common ground shared by female and male genital cutting, saying, quote, "I stand with many brothers in eliminating that practice too." Even circumcised women themselves have opposed male genital mutilation, including filmmaker Soraya Murray, politician Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and more recently, medical anthropologist Fuambai Amadou, who wrote, quote, "Concerns for the rights of the child in this instance should not be gender or sex specific." Brian Earp, the world's foremost authority on the ethics of genital mutilation, agrees. He said, quote, "When it comes to minors and non-medical genital operations, considerations about whether this is allowed to continue must be taken together and include both genders, without special privileges being accorded to one sex or another. Judges have even weighed in. The federal anti-FGM statute was adopted in 1996, but the first attempted prosecution only occurred in 2018 against a Muslim doctor who performed minor nicking of the vulvas of her Muslim child patients. Before ruling that law to be unconstitutional on Federalist grounds, Judge Bernard Friedman noted, quote, "As laudable as the prohibition of a particular type of abuse of girls may be, it does not logically further the goal of protecting children on a non-discriminatory basis." Consider this also. Most doctors in the world would never agree to harm a healthy child by cutting into his normal genitals. And almost all medical associations in the world discourage or condemn newborn circumcision as being unethical. In fact, the prime directive of medicine, the Hippocratic Oath, authored by the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates, states, "I will do no harm or injustice to my patients." If Hippocrates were alive today and walked into a US hospital, he'd be shocked and disgusted to see physicians surgically altering the normal genitals of baby boys. He'd be further incensed to learn that those same physicians are knowingly acting as agents of a social custom and excusing their unethical behavior by hiding behind the shield of medicine. Both FGM and MGM alter the normal anatomy of children without the consent of the individual. Both are indefensible. Newborn circumcision rests on the absurd premise that the only mammal that is born wrong and in need of immediate surgical correction is the human male. Why does the American medical community define circumcision as preventive medicine? To avoid recognizing it as male genital mutilation. FGM-specific laws further legitimize male circumcision and obscure the fact that it too is genital mutilation. And let's be clear, circumcision is not healthcare. It's a custom, just like female genital mutilation. These are customs in which doctors should play no role. It's time for Americans to wake up to the fact that the bodily integrity of all children, regardless of sex, deserves protection from non-medically indicated genital cutting. The core legal issues here are bodily autonomy and gender equality. As Dr. Natalia Kanem of the United Nations Population Fund expressed, quote, "Bodily autonomy means my body is for me. My body is my own. It's about power, and it's about agency, it's about choice, and it's about dignity. Bodily autonomy is the foundation for gender equality, and above all, it's a fundamental right." Yeah. It's estimated that genital mutilation in the US may affect up to 500,000 females, but it's no exaggeration to say America faces a genital mutilation crisis that we know affects over 1.25 million newborns every year. That's 3,000 babies a day, one every 26 seconds. Under our for-profit corporate medical system, this needless and destructive surgery is at least a $625 million a year industry in physician fees alone. For a moment, however, let's set aside sex and just imagine that this genital mutilation law was based on the race of the victims. What if it had prohibited genital mutilation of only Black people, leaving Latinos, Asians, and Caucasians unprotected? Wouldn't that be discriminatory? and worthy of a constitutional challenge? So today, on the occasion of the filing of this historic legal challenge, I'm pleased to share this recently published caution from my colleagues at the Brussels Collaboration on Bodily Integrity, comprised of more than 120 international experts from medicine, law, ethics, women's groups, and human rights organizations. Quote, as a matter of justice, inclusivity, and gender equality in medical ethical policy, clinicians should not be permitted to perform any non-voluntary genital cutting or surgery in prepubescent minors, irrespective of the latter's sex traits. The hard-won protections that have been put in place for girls will not be secure against objections and countervailing pressures as long as non-voluntary, non-therapeutic, non-religious penile circumcision of newborns continues in healthcare settings. In closing, I want to stress that this equal protection challenge is not intended to lower the ceiling of protection for females, but rather to raise the floor to protect every child regardless of gender. This is why I invite all stakeholders to join our efforts to recognize that genital mutilation laws must adopt gender-neutral language to protect children's basic human right to bodily integrity, regardless of sex, so they can grow up to decide for themselves how much of their genitals they get to keep.
Yeah. So Tim Hammond, Executive Director of GALDEF. Another round of applause. Thank you, Tim. Now it's my